47 seconds into the live broadcast, Jasmine Crockett ripped open a blood-red file like it was a grenade, then dropped a $1.8 million bomb that made Ivanka Trump's face freeze on national TV. Cameras snapped. Trump stormed in like a beast uncaged, barking orders, eyes wild. What did Jasmine unleash? That made the most powerful family in America forget their script live. At 9:00 a.m. sharp, the hearing room stopped breathing. CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC all went live, 3 red lights blinking like sniper sights on the marble walls. Viewers across the country leaned in, expecting another stiff scripted political show. What they got was Jasmine Crockett. She didn't carry papers. No water bottle, no assistant trailing behind, just a dossier, thick worn, the kind of red that doesn't ask for attention. It demands it. She held it tight like it might bite if she let go. The security guards didn't blink, but their hands shifted. Reporters whispered, "She brought it." A Capitol Hill staffer dropped their pen. Jasmine didn't flinch. Her heels clicked once, twice, and then she sat, slow, controlled, like she was setting a countdown in motion. The room looked polished, sure, but fake, like a courtroom built on a movie set. Flags stood too still. Nameplates gleamed too bright. Even the microphones felt too close, like they were eavesdropping instead of recording. Ivanka Trump was already seated. Pale, blazer, practiced smile. She looked calm until she saw Jasmine. Her eyes landed on the red folder, and for half a second, they flickered. Not fear. Something worse. Recognition. Jasmine placed the file on the desk like a brick of C4. No opening statement. No greetings. Just silence, dense, tight, coiled like a spring. She didn't look at Ivanka. She stared straight ahead past the cameras, past the senators, like she could already see the explosion coming. And then, just as the chair adjusted her mic and leaned in to begin, the back door clicked open. No knock, no name, no protocol. Just footsteps. Slow, heavy, uninvited. Donald J. Trump had entered the room. Trump didn't say a word he didn't have to. His presence cracked the air like a storm rolling in mid-testimony. He walked to the back of the room, not looking at Jasmine, not looking at Ivanka, just absorbing the space like he owned it. Every camera followed him like prey. Then he sat, arms folded, jaw clenched, gaze locked forward like a loaded rifle. At the front, Ivanka didn't blink. She straightened her blazer, crossed her legs at the ankle, and folded her hands perfectly on the desk. Her outfit was cream, almost glowing under the lights, like she wanted to float above it all. Her lips curled into a soft smile, rehearsed, sweet, sterile. The kind of smile that looks best on a magazine cover, not under oath. Behind her sat a row of handlers, 2 lawyers, a publicist, and a man who hadn't stopped checking his phone since Trump entered. Their calm was fake. You could see it in their eyes. They were waiting for something, bracing for something. But Jasmine, she wasn't waiting at all. She sat perfectly still, her hands resting on either side of the red folder. Her posture wasn't defiant, it was surgical, like a surgeon who'd already mapped out the incision and was just waiting for the clock to strike. She didn't glance at Ivanka. She didn't glance at Trump. She kept her gaze steady, like the target hadn't moved. The room was packed, yet no one dared speak. Even the creak of a leather chair felt like a scream. And at the center of that pressure, silent, cold, steady, was Jasmine Crockett, the woman holding the one thing nobody else in that room could control: the truth. The door didn't creak. It snapped open like a gavel slamming down too early. No warning, no escort, just heavy footsteps on marble. Every head in the room turned before the sound even finished echoing. And then he appeared. Donald J. Trump walked in like he'd never left. Navy suit sharper than it needed to be, tie-straight expression carved from stone. His eyes swept the room like a general surveying the battlefield, not for allies, but for threats. Reporters froze mid-note. A Capitol police officer shifted his stance, unsure if he should stop him or salute. He wasn't scheduled. He wasn't invited. He didn't care. He moved to the back row, sat slowly, and crossed one leg over the other, like this was his house, and everyone else was just trespassing. But it wasn't bravado. It was instinct panic disguised as presence. Because across the room sat a woman holding a sealed file that made him break every rule of procedure just to be in the same room. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't even acknowledge him. Her fingers tapped the edge of the red file once, like checking for a pulse. Her body didn't move, but the energy around her shifted, tightened. The power dynamic didn't change because Trump entered. It changed because he had to, and everyone watching could feel it. From the Senate floor to every living room in America, a single question pulsed beneath the silence, like a heartbeat under concrete. What could be inside that folder that made a former president abandon protocol and walk into a trap on live television? The chairwoman cleared her throat, her voice cracking through the tension like a match strike in a gas-filled room. Ms. Trump, you may begin your statement. Ivanka nodded, the smile on her face smooth as satin, too smooth. She opened with the familiar notes of scripted humility. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm honored to be here today to address any confusion. But Jasmine wasn't here for confusion. She was here for clarity with a scalpel, not a spotlight. She didn't wait for the statement to finish. She leaned forward, elbows resting lightly beside the red file. Her tone wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Ms. Trump, do you recall authorizing a $1.8 million transfer for an event titled the Venice Gala? Back in March of 2022, Ivanka blinked once too slowly. Yes, that was a fundraising event. She replied, her voice suddenly lighter, airier, like a singer trying to hit a note she hadn't practiced in months. Though I believe it was postponed due to unforeseen circumstances. Jasmine didn't move. Postponed or canceled a flicker. Just a hairline crack in the porcelain calm. I would have to check with the no need. Jasmine's voice cut like a razor through velvet. She slid a single document across the table. Press release, dated March 9th. Venice Gala officially canceled. No reschedule, no contingency. 12 days before the $1.8 million wire transfer went through. The cameras zoomed tighter. Ivanka didn't blink this time because blinking would admit she saw it coming. And Jasmine hadn't even touched the folder yet. Ivanka didn't respond right away. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound followed. It was the kind of silence that doesn't come from confusion, it comes from calculation. Jasmine let it hang there, letting the quiet choke the moment. Then without a word, she tapped twice on her tablet. The screen behind her flickered, then bloomed into focus. A scanned document appeared, crisp, high-resolution, undeniable. A single signature, dated March 21st. Ivanka Trump, authorization $1.8 million. The room tensed like a pulled wire. You could hear someone in the back row drop a pen. A journalist near the press bench whispered, "That's after the cancellation." Jasmine didn't react. She already knew what they were seeing. Your signature, she said calmly, not accusing, stating as if reading a timestamp off a bomb. This appears on a wire order dated 12 days after your team publicly canceled the event. Her voice didn't rise, but the weight in it did. Ivanka shifted slightly, but her smile was gone now, drained out of her like color from a bleeding photo. Her lawyer seated behind her leaned forward half an inch, but Jasmine wasn't done. She stepped aside so the screen filled the room, clear as ink, direct as intent, and louder than any denial Ivanka could try to speak. All around the dais, senators began glancing sideways, eyebrows raised, notes scribbled faster. Even the GOP bench wasn't blinking anymore, and behind them the gallery buzzed, not with noise but with recognition, the kind that only hits when the truth is no longer a theory, but a signature. Jasmine didn't blink. She let the screen behind her fade for 2 seconds, just long enough for the signature to sink into the bloodstream of the room. Then she tapped again. The monitor refreshed, revealing a new document. A wire transfer ledger, simple, sterile, surgical. 4 payments, each labeled Venice Gala Vendor Reimbursement, each dated after the event's cancellation, and each sent to the same Delaware-based LLC. Jasmine stepped closer to the screen, her voice smooth as cut glass. All 4 transactions totaling exactly $1.8 million were routed to a single recipient. She paused just long enough for the room to hold its breath. ET Strategic Holdings, LLC. For a moment, no one reacted. The name hovered in the air like steam before a fire alarm. Then a second tap zoom in. Below the company name, Managing Officer, Eric Theodore Trump. The gallery didn't gasp. It inhaled, like a storm pulling in oxygen before the thunder hits. Ivanka's jaw shifted. Her eyes flicked toward the screen, then away as if pretending not to recognize her brother's name might make it disappear. It didn't. Jasmine didn't shout. She didn't point. She just turned to the dais and asked the question already burning in every viewer's mind. If the gala never happened, why did millions end up in a company managed by the former president's son? Behind her, the red folder hadn't moved an inch, but the ground under Ivanka's chair just did. Trump didn't wait for anyone. He lunged halfway to his feet, hand slamming down on the railing in front of him, with a sound that cracked like a pistol shot. His voice tore through the chamber like a falling chandelier. "Sit down, girl," he barked sharp, guttural on national television. Everything stopped. One aide in the front row dropped her notepad. A camera operator gasped into his headset. Somewhere in the gallery, a journalist whispered into a live mic. Did he just say that the silence that followed wasn't passive, it was stunned? Even the fluorescent lights seemed to dim. Jasmine didn't react immediately. She stayed seated, unmoving, like she'd heard that phrase 100 times before, and filed it under irrelevant. But inside the stillness, the air turned electric. The room wasn't waiting for an apology. It was waiting to see if she'd break. Her eyes shifted slowly, surgically, until they locked with his. Not defiant, not shocked, just focused, like a sniper dialing in wind speed. And then she spoke. "I'll sit," Jasmine said, her voice smooth as smoke curling through steel. When the truth gets tired of standing, it didn't echo, it detonated. A ripple of breath moved across the chamber, like a wave of thunder rolling under marble. Ivanka's face went rigid. One Republican senator sank lower in his seat. Trump's mouth opened again, but no words came out this time. Because Jasmine Crockett had just flipped the power dynamic upside down, and she'd done it without ever raising her voice. The second the words left her mouth, the room didn't exhale. It cracked. Camera flashes exploded like lightning in a dark sky. Phones lit up. "Sit down, girl," flooded X within seconds, but it wasn't irony fueling the fire. It was rage, admiration, recognition. Jasmine rose slowly, not for show, but for precision. Her shoulders rolled back, spine straight as steel. Her voice didn't rise, but her presence did. "You don't get to shrink me with that word," she said, eyes locked on Trump, like a surgeon measuring where to cut. "I've heard it on porches," she continued, behind closed doors buried in court transcripts. And now here, on national TV, with cameras rolling and a former president losing his grip. Trump didn't respond. Not because he couldn't, but because she had stolen the air from his lungs. Ivanka glanced down, hands tightening in her lap. Across the chamber, even seasoned senators sat frozen, not by fear, but by gravity. Jasmine wasn't just reclaiming the room, she was redrawing its lines. She took a step forward, just one, but it landed like a gavel. "Let the nation hear it raw," she said, voice steady. "Let them hear what power sounds like when it panics." A murmur rippled through the gallery. No one dared move. Even the Capitol lights seemed to lean in. Jasmine turned back to her desk, still calm, still silent, but now carrying the weight of everyone who'd ever been told to stay small. And she hadn't even cracked open the evidence yet. Jasmine didn't sit. She reached for her tablet with the same calm precision a surgeon uses to lift a scalpel. One tap, no theatrics, no delay. The screen behind her lit up again, but this time it wasn't a signature or a letter. It was a spreadsheet. Clean, stark, brutal. 4 line items side by side, all marked Venice Gala vendor disbursement, all dated after the public cancellation, and all sent to the same recipient, ET Strategic Holdings, LLC. Jasmine turned toward the screen but didn't speak right away. She let the numbers do what shouting never could accuse without blinking. "Same account, same amount, same story," she said finally, voice low and sharp as ice cracking beneath boots. And every dollar signed off by the same name. Ivanka stared straight ahead now, face tight, jaw locked. No blinking, no breath. Just the slow collapse of polish under pressure. Trump didn't move either. But the stillness around him had changed. Before it was dominance. Now it was calculation. Jasmine had touched something. Not just a line item, a vein. She stepped back once more, slow, deliberate. "This isn't a clerical error," she said. "It's choreography. And it's been rehearsed before." Reporters typed like their fingers were on fire. One senator murmured something to his aide, who stopped breathing mid-keystroke. The Trump brand wasn't crumbling, it was peeling. And what if beneath the gold trim, the podiums, the perfectly stitched slogans, there was no real legacy at all? Just a machine. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't change her posture. She simply reached into the crimson file for the first time. Not the thick bundle of spreadsheets, not the forensic report, a single envelope, unmarked, sealed, worn at the corners, like it had been carried too long by someone too scared to send it. She held it up in one hand and turned to the room. "No one else in this chamber has seen what I'm about to read," she said. "But the person who wrote it sat 2 doors down from Ms. Trump for 6 years." The room stiffened. Jasmine peeled the envelope open like it contained gunpowder. And in a way it did. "One name," she said, unfolding the paper. One voice that decided silence was no longer protection. She paused, just long enough for the anticipation to ache. Caleb Wexler. It landed like thunder under marble. Reporters jolted upright. Aides' fingers hovered above their tablets. A senator's coffee cup tipped and spilled unnoticed. Because that name wasn't just another source. Caleb Wexler was the architect Ivanka Trump's shadow advisor, media strategist, and golden boy, until 2021, when he vanished. No press release, no resignation, just gone, and now his signature sat in Jasmine's hands. "He didn't disappear," she said quietly. "He was erased." Ivanka's face turned to glass. Her lips parted just slightly, but no sound came. Because for the first time since the hearing began, someone from inside the machine had spoken. And what Caleb saw was about to split this room in half. Jasmine unfolded the letter with the care of someone handling evidence from a crime scene. The page trembled slightly in her hand, but not from nerves. From weight. From the kind of truth that had been buried too long and had finally clawed its way into daylight. Her eyes scanned it once silently. Then she looked up and read, "To whom it may concern, I can no longer live with what I've seen." The words didn't just echo, they flattened the room. Caleb's voice poured through her steady, detailed damning. "The Ivanka Trump Foundation is not a nonprofit. It is a laundering mechanism designed to funnel donor contributions into private real estate ventures under the Trump Organization. No buildup, no euphemisms, just the blade unsheathed." Jaws dropped. A senator leaned forward with both hands gripping the desk like an anchor. Someone in the press gallery whispered, "Oh my God," and it made it into the live mic feed. Jasmine kept going, line by line, like a surgeon slicing clean. Invoices were fabricated. Wire transfers were backdated. The Venice Gala was never meant to happen. It existed solely to justify a single disbursement, $1.8 million, approved by Ms. Trump at the instruction of her father. If Ivanka didn't blink, but her hands were locked on the table, white-knuckled. Jasmine read the final line with a voice that didn't tremble, but made the walls feel colder. "I stayed silent for 2 years. I won't die complicit." She folded the letter once, then set it beside the dossier, neatly like a gravestone, on top of everything they'd tried to hide. For a long, suffocating moment, no one spoke. Caleb's words still lingered in the air, like gunpowder, sharp and visible, ready to ignite. Senators sat frozen, unsure whether to defend, deflect, or disappear. The room had stopped moving, until a mic blinked red. "Madam Chair." A voice called, calm, clear male. All heads turned. It wasn't a Democrat. It wasn't a prosecutor. It was Mason Carr, freshman Republican 29. Trump-endorsed Ohio-born, and until now completely silent. He straightened in his chair, gaze level, voice steady. "We cannot ignore this. No theatrics. No hesitation. Just 5 words that shattered the dam." The chamber reacted like it had been struck. Ivanka's eyes darted toward him, stunned. Trump in the back didn't move, but his nostrils flared like something had just slipped out from under his control. Carr didn't look at either of them. He looked at the documents, at the spreadsheet, at the letter, at the room that no longer felt quite as safe as it did 5 minutes ago. If Caleb Wexler, someone this administration trusted, has provided testimony and documentation that align with verifiable financial records, he paused just long enough to make everyone lean in. Then this chamber has a duty to respond, not as partisans, as Americans. Reporters lost control. Phones exploded. Headlines were being typed before he finished his sentence. And as Jasmine turned back to face the room, her expression didn't change. She had just cracked the walls. And now, even the roof was making a sound. Jasmine didn't wait for applause. She didn't need it. Instead, she slid a black tabbed binder across the desk like it held a detonator. Her finger tapped once, sharp final. A new file appeared on the main screen: IRS Oversight Review, 2016-2021. Unpublished. Gas rippled across the chamber like water hitting oil. This report was never released to the public, Jasmine said, and yet it contains 5 years of flagged charitable transactions, all tied to the Ivanka Trump Foundation. She paused, each one signed off by the same hand. The screen zoomed in. There it was, Ivanka M. Trump, scrawled in cursive across lines itemizing millions. Wire transfers to shell corporations, matching amounts. Dates that overlap perfectly with campaign events and family property acquisitions. Then Trump's voice, raw and loud, split the tension in two. Fake. He stood now pointing at the screen like it had just insulted him personally. That's fabricated. That's deep state trash. Jasmine didn't flinch. She simply turned her head, eyes locked on him like a surgeon about to cut. Then sue the IRS, she said, soft and surgical. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you under oath. The room froze. Even the stenographer paused mid-keystroke, not because of what she said, but because of how calm she was when she said it. Trump's mouth opened again, then stopped. Because this wasn't campaign mudslinging. It wasn't politics. It was paper, with government stamps matching dates and his daughter's signature carved in ink. And Jasmine hadn't even touched the final page. Ivanka didn't speak. She didn't blink. Her eyes dropped not from exhaustion, but calculation. In front of her, the screen still glowed with the IRS seal, her signature magnified 30 times, looping above numbers that bled through every television set in America. Then, a rustle. Her attorney stood crisp, suit-pale knuckles gripping the mic. Madam Chair, he said, voice clipped like a scalpel, my client respectfully invokes her Fifth Amendment right. The words hit the room like a siren behind closed doors. Bang. A thud of reality. You could hear America gasp on set-in bars in break rooms across 50 states. This wasn't hearsay. It wasn't partisan spin. This was silence-chosen silence. The kind that doesn't protect the innocent. It buries the guilty. Cameras zoomed. Headlines rewrote themselves in real time. On Twitter, she pled, started climbing. On CNN, the anchor blinked twice before whispering, "She took the fifth." Jasmine didn't celebrate. She didn't smirk. She simply leaned back as if she'd been expecting this exact moment since the day she opened the red folder. And across the chamber, Donald Trump's jaw tightened, because he knew exactly what America just saw, not a daughter protecting herself, but a brand cracking on live television. And the worst part, Jasmine hadn't even asked the real question yet. The silence after Ivanka's fifth felt like a cliff, but Jasmine wasn't done. She tapped the folder once, then nodded toward the clerk. A soft click echoed through the room, then came the voice. Dad said sign it. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't shouted. It was Ivanka. Clear, calm, casual. A line so simple it slipped under the skin before anyone could react. Then it detonated. Trump surged forward like a pressure valve exploding. You can't play that. That's illegal. That's doctored audio. He was shouting now, red in the face, jabbing a finger toward the speakers like he could rewind the truth with rage. Jasmine didn't even look at him. Her hand was already lifting the remote, cool as steel. She pressed one button. The screen behind her lit up white text on black background. Transcript Ivanka. They're asking for confirmation. Trump. Just sign. We've used ET Holdings before. Ivanka. All right, but if this leaks, Trump. Then we make it go away. The chamber didn't breathe. Phones slipped from hands. One aide in the back corner sat down too fast. This wasn't just implication. This was admission. And not from a stranger or an accuser, but from the horse's mouth caught in a moment they thought would stay sealed forever. Jasmine glanced once toward the camera, not smiling, not gloating, just calm like someone reading the weather before a hurricane. And as the screen faded to black, one question pulsed through a nation's chest. If that's what they said behind closed doors, what else is on tape? By 8:00 a.m., the next morning, the Department of Justice had issued a formal notice. An active federal investigation into fraudulent misuse of nonprofit funds is now underway. At 8:03, Ivanka Trump resigned from every board tied to the foundation. By 8:10, Fox News split in two, half defending the family legacy, half asking how many more tapes existed. Talk show hosts stammered. Former allies began their slow retreat. The phrase, "if true," became the shield of cowards. But Jasmine Crockett, she disappeared. No cameras, no interviews, no podium. Just a single tweet I'm reading. She sat alone in her district office, lights dim inbox open. Hundreds of emails flooded in, some grateful, some furious, some shaking with rage or relief. One message was from a janitor in Omaha. "I don't know politics, but last night you made me feel like truth matters again." Another was handwritten, scanned, and sent from an 82-year-old woman in Alabama. "They silenced us for years. You made the silence break." Jasmine read every word, not to be praised, but to remind herself why she'd lit the match in the first place. Because this wasn't about taking down a name. It was about proving a truth that no name, no money, no brand is untouchable, and the storm wasn't over yet. The letter came in a plain envelope, no return address, no stamp. It had been hand-delivered. No one saw who dropped it. Her assistant opened it first, then froze. "Jas, you need to see this." Jasmine pulled out a single-page, ransom-style letters glued in uneven lines. "Women like you don't live long in this game," but something was taped behind it. A photo, faded, glossy, her father's gravestone. Jasmine stared at it not in fear, but in fury. Her breath didn't catch. It burned. She folded the paper in half, then in half again, before tearing it straight through the stone-cold center. No press release, no panic, just one quiet order to her chief of staff up the security. "But don't let the team flinch." The room tensed. Jasmine didn't. She'd grown up around fear, knew its tricks. This wasn't new, it was just louder now. Because when you speak truth to power, power stops pretending. That's when it gets dangerous. And still she stayed. She didn't carry a gun. She carried names, evidence, testimony, a body made of nerve and a voice no threat could mute. The cameras were gone. The tweets had slowed. But now the stakes were no longer political. They were personal, physical, and Jasmine Crockett. She was stepping deeper into the fire because backing out now would mean someone else somewhere would have to walk in without her. The office was dark except for the soft hum of a desk lamp and the faint glow of streetlights slicing through the blinds. Jasmine sat alone, still in her blazer, her hands resting on the cold wood like she hadn't moved in hours. The adrenaline had faded, but the weight hadn't. Then her phone vibrated once, sharp and deliberate, like a knock at midnight. She looked down. Anita Hill. The name hit harder than any headline. Jasmine stared for a moment, breath locked in her chest, then answered with a quiet, "Hello." Anita's voice came through calm and unwavering. "They tried to erase me," she said. "But you rewrote the ending." Jasmine's throat tightened. Her fingers curled around the armrest. "You were the reason I went to law school," she whispered. There was a pause, like time stopped to listen. "They count on silence," Anita said, her tone like polished steel. "But you gave it a microphone." Jasmine let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "I didn't plan to start a fire," she said. "Just couldn't keep watching the smoke." Anita's soft laugh cracked the tension. "Then let it burn, Jasmine. Let the truth do what it does." When the call ended, Jasmine didn't move for a long moment. The air around her felt changed, heavier but also fuller. She wasn't just the voice of a generation anymore. She was its echo, its fury, and now its answer. The oak doors of the Capitol swung open like a stage curtain, and Jasmine Crockett stepped into the roar. Flashbulbs cracked like lightning. Microphones lunged. Reporters shouted over each other, questions slicing through the chaos like arrows. "Would you do it again?" One voice pierced above the rest. Jasmine paused just for a second. Then she turned her stare, drilling into the nearest camera lens like a sniper scope. "I'd do it louder." Gasps, shudders, silence. The clip aired on 137 times in 48 hours across every major network. It was replayed in diners, barbershops, airports, courtrooms. The line was etched into coffee mugs, t-shirts, protest signs. It wasn't just a soundbite, it was a siren. Behind her, the building stood heavy with secrets. In front of her, a crowd of strangers began to clap, not because they were told to, but because something in them recognized the moment. Something ancient. Something that said she didn't blink. Jasmine didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just walked. Each step wasn't for applause. It was for every name buried in redacted files. Every truth crushed by power. Every voice told to sit down, shut up, or vanish quietly. And for the first time in a long time, America listened. The hashtag spread like wildfire. Sit Down Girl was no longer just a moment. It was a movement. It blazed across continents, into classrooms, courtrooms, protests. On a cracked sidewalk in Atlanta, a little black girl stood holding a hand-painted sign, "Truth has curls too." The photo went viral in less than an hour. Letters began pouring in. From retired nurses, laid-off factory workers, single parents who had filled out donation forms for foundations that never responded. "They promised us scholarships," one woman wrote. "We never even got a call back." Jasmine read each one, not like a politician, but like a witness in a trial that never ended. Each envelope cut deeper than any insult hurled from across the aisle. These weren't headlines. They were scars. The hearing had shaken the system, but this was the aftershock. Americans weren't just watching anymore. They were remembering. They were digging into bank statements, unearthing old promises, lifting the floorboards of charity and finding dust. Jasmine didn't tweet a response. She didn't need to, because the voices were rising on their own now, uncoached, unfiltered, undeniable. Truth had finally found its echo, and it sounded nothing like politics. It sounded like people. The auditorium at Howard University was packed shoulder to shoulder. No security, no teleprompter, no telegraph pauses, just Jasmine Crockett standing center stage beneath a single spotlight, gripping the lectern like it held the pulse of the nation. She looked out not just at students, but at future lawyers, teachers, mothers, fighters. The room wasn't silent, it was listening. "This isn't about left or right," she said, her voice steady, cutting through decades of excuses like glass through fog. "It's about right and wrong." A pause, a breath. "They told me to sit down. I stood. They said be quiet. I spoke. They laughed. I didn't flinch." The crowd leaned in as if gravity itself pulled them closer. "I'm not here because I'm fearless," she said, eyes scanning faces with the weight of someone who had earned every scar. "I'm here because someone out there can't speak yet, because someone still thinks their truth doesn't matter, because someone thinks silence will keep them safe." Her final words dropped like thunder through still air. It won't, but courage might. For a moment, silence wrapped the auditorium like a storm cloud. Then a young black girl, no more than 10, stood up near the back, braids tied with red ribbons, eyes wide. She raised a trembling hand and asked, "Ma'am, can you say it again?" Jasmine looked down, no smile, just fire softening to warmth. She leaned into the mic. Her voice didn't shake. "I'd do it louder." The room didn't clap. It rose, like a tide. No reporters shouted, no one filmed, just 1,000 hearts cracking open at once. And somewhere across America, another girl rewrote her future with 4 words. Jasmine didn't need to shout. She stood up, spoke one sentence, and the entire nation fell silent. In a world full of noise, sometimes true courage is simply saying the right thing, at the right moment. If it were you standing in a room full of power and deceit, would you rise, share a moment when you spoke your truth? Someone out there might need your story to find their voice. If this story stirred something in you, don't just scroll past it. Like, share and subscribe to Hill Insights, where silence ends and truth takes the mic. Hit the bell, because the next reckoning might start with your voice. What part made your heart pause or your fist clench? Tell us in the comments. Your truth might be the one someone's been waiting to hear. This dramatized story is inspired by real struggles and real people. All characters and dialogue are fictionalized for commentary and education. It is not intended to defame or mislead, but to inspire reflection and civic awareness. Thanks for watching. Truth isn't over, it's just waiting for someone to speak it.